Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be a book tag. This tag will be the Life of the Reader book tag, which was created by Nicole and her books, and I was tagged by Gabriella from Books and Other Nerdy Things. I will leave both of their channel links down below. This tag is a tag that just allows you to talk about your reading journey and what got you into reading, what books you enjoyed back when you were a child, and what got you back into reading if you didn't like books when you were younger, things like that. So I'm gonna just jump right into the tag. So one of the questions is, what was the first book that you remember reading? And I have to say that I have always been a reader, so I can't choose just one book that I remember reading. Always picked up anything I possibly could, especially from like Scholastic book fairs, and it's just my twin sister and I and our family who actually enjoy reading. But I can say that I do remember reading like books like the Magic Treehouse series when I was younger, and I read the American Girl books. And then I remember getting into like Granny Torelli Makes Soup. I had a teacher who read that to my class when I was in, I don't know, first grade or something like that, maybe second grade. I don't know for sure or not, but I've just always been a reader, so I'm going to talk about some of my favorite books. I actually started to pick up and buy some of my old faves. So one of them is The Tale of Despereaux by Kate Dicamillo. I also really like Because of Winn-Dixie, and I haven't gotten a copy of that one yet, but I remember reading that one when I was younger, and she's just amazing, just perfect for younger readers, absolutely great. And then I also loved Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funk. Just loved reading about dragons and, you know, fantasy, and it was just a whole lot of fun to get into. I also had a teacher who read Esperanza Rising. She read Esperanza Rising to us, and I absolutely loved it. Loved it so much that I had to buy myself my own copy. Those are some of my favorites from when I was younger. I love them and I will continue to read them. They're just great. And then from childhood into my teen years, again, I've always been a reader, so I was always reading books from, you know, the Twilight series and Harry Potter and, you know, any book that came out during my teen years, I was reading it. I remember reading The Hunger Games before it got super hyped up and super popular. I found the first book and I'm like, this sounds interesting, let me read it. And I did, and I loved it, and then it became popular. So, you know, I was a little ahead of the game there. And then when I was in 7th grade, my teacher actually assigned us to read The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, and that's a book that I really enjoy, and I actually like the movie too, so check those out if you haven't read it or watched the movie. In my teen years, I also read Copper Sun by Sharon M. Draper. This actually won the Coretta Scott King Award, and it's just incredible. I highly recommend you pick it up. Historical fiction with a main character who is a slave and another main character who is an indentured servant. It's just very heartbreaking to read about, but it's very, very powerful, and I will always love this book. I've read it many times already. And then comes a book that really got me into my favorite genre of all time, which is fantasy. Absolutely love fantasy. I have an entire shelf that's pretty much all fantasy. That book is The Naming by Alison Croggon. This is the first book in the Books of Pelennor series. There's 4 books in the series, as well as a prequel. So far, this world is just absolutely incredible. I remember my mom actually, I remember when Borders existed. If you live in the US or have heard of Borders. Borders was a major chain bookstore that was around for a while. Now we just have Barnes & Noble, but Borders did exist, and I remember going into Borders looking for a new book, and my mom actually saw The Naming on the shelf, and she's like, oh, Cass, like, this seems like something that you would enjoy. I read the back of it. I was less like, yes, let me read this. This sounds great. And I am just obsessed with the entire series. I can say that Alison Croggon is one of my favorite authors now. She definitely got me into more high fantasy stuff. This is still young adult, but I compare it to Lord of the Rings, but for younger readers. It's just one of my all-time faves. If somebody asked me what my favorite book is, I would say The Naming. It's that good. Going off of this, I, of course, love fantasy. I will always love fantasy. I started with a few books before this that were considered fantasy, but this was, like I said, one that really got me into it. But then I got more into YA contemporary and sci-fi. However, now that I'm older, I do want to start reading more nonfiction. It's not a genre that I usually pick up, but I do want to read more because I like to get information. I like learning things, but it's sometimes really dry. So I need to find like the right type of nonfiction books to read. I also kind of have fallen away from YA contemporary. I like a little bit more romance and a little bit more adult content in it, not just sex in it, but a little bit more my age, although I still completely respect YA contemporary. I think it's awesome. I have read many, and I do still have some on my TBR that I do want to get to. It's just a genre that I've kind of fallen away from. I do still read YA fantasy because fantasy, like I said, all-time favorite. And I do want to get into more adult sci-fi, like more hardcore stuff, you know? I don't know what that was. What am I doing? Do you reread books? I do, absolutely. I've reread The Naming many a times, reread Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all those kinds of books. And yeah, I do reread, not as much as I want to, but I do reread. Are there any books that I have not finished? Probably. I don't really remember them because if I didn't finish them, that means I wasn't liking it and I DNF'd it, so I don't remember them. Is there a book that I've been meaning to read for ages? Probably all of the books on my TBR shelf. Let me see if I can just real quick glance, and my cat is in a box over there. Oh my god. It's really messy. I don't want to show you, but okay, cool. You know what? Let me just show you. I don't care. Hey, girlfriend. Oh, I see one. House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danilowski or something like that. Yes, that one. I have had it on my shelf for a while, haven't gotten to it. As well as Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. Another one that I have not gotten around to. Some favorite quotes. I really love all things Lord of the Rings. I have tattoos of Lord of the Rings stuff on me. I do love Not All Those Who Wander Are Lost, and all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us, and love J.R.R. Tolkien. Do I listen to audiobooks? I have tried. I've listened to one full book so far on audio, and I'm trying to make my way through Gone with the Wind on audiobook, as well as reading it. I'm like switching between the two. I'm trying. I find myself being very distracted by audiobooks. So I guess it's just not my thing. Buying books versus going to the library. I personally prefer to buy my books. I love to collect books, and I want to have like a library in my house when I get one, if I ever get one. But yeah, I just love being surrounded by books, so I prefer to buy my books. Do I read one book at a time or multiple? Multiple. I can't seem to not read more than one book. Physical books versus ebooks versus audiobooks. Physical all the way. I hate ebooks. I will only read them if I am going like on a super long trip and I need to bring my Nook or something. And that's how old school I am. I have a Nook, guys. Like, I'm not getting anywhere with ebooks. And audiobooks, like I said, I respect them. I see the use of them, and I just can't really get into them too much. I'd rather listen to music when I'm in the car, so something that's I can just tune out if I need to, and it's not distracting to me. So, and the very last question is, when did I discover Booktube? How did I discover it? And who was the first booktuber that I watched? So, I'm one of the oldest booktubers. Not in regards to my age, but I've been here from the very beginning. I started my channel back in 2011. And that's like a year or two into the first few YouTubers that were booktubers. I would take breaks here and there because of school, and then I moved to New York City and things like that. So I wasn't active for the entire time, but I was there and I still have my videos up and it was a good time. I think I discovered Booktube because I looked up a review on a book or something. I don't quite remember. I remember just seeing something about like a bookshelf tour and I'm like, bookshelf tour, that sounds kind of cool, let me see that. Clicked on it, watched it all the way through, and I just fell in love with Booktube. And since then I was always searching online for more videos about books, and then I was, you know, introduced to this entire side of YouTube. The first booktuber that I actually watched, I cannot remember her name for the life of me. If I do remember, I'm gonna leave her name and link down below. She doesn't do videos anymore, I don't think. Loved her reviews. I loved her videos. She was great. And she was definitely one of the first that I've watched. And I also watched Padfoot and Prawn 07, Raylene, obviously, and she has also left Booktube since then. However, she's still active on like Instagram and stuff like that, and she is also featured on Ariel Bassett's channel every once in a while. But yeah, so that was the last question. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too long. I tried to keep it in a reasonable time frame. I won't be tagging anybody, but if you would like to do this tag and say that I tagged you, go right ahead. Please like this video and subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you all next time. Bye!